is on.
There we go.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So again, questions in the chat or raise your hand. We can unmute you, and when it's your turn to speak, I'll try to be vigilant of who's next, and I'll just ask you to unmute yourself as we go. So yeah, Abby, I don't know if you want to kick going.
Yeah, I'll do it. Awesome. Hi everybody. I missed you all last month. Thank you to Shelby and Julian for taking over. So very excited to chat with all of you today. So I guess we can start with our, actually I just wanted to give one quick announcement. We've kind of all fell into this pattern of doing written updates on radical.community. And I actually like us to definitely keep doing that process officially and kind of make it as like a requirement for our core teams moving forward and for new core teams. I think it's really good practice, and it's something as we, again, naturally do to share updates. So let's keep on that. It seems like everybody did them this month as well. So just keep that logged for months going forward. So good job with that. So we can start with core team updates. Does Link want to go first?
Always. Okay. Everybody see that? Take that as a yes. Cool. It's been a great month. Spring has sprung, and a bit of spring cleaning was happening, but the overarching topics were big branding. We've changed from rad prefix to lunk prefixed CLI facing components, and just general renaming of things to link or lunk. This decision was made to avoid stepping on toes of other application developers, for example, the alt clients team's rad binary, and trying to avoid overlapping subcommands. So you can think of this as lunk being Rust C and rad being cargo. In the realm of replication, we've been moving towards stabilizing replication v3. And there's been some serious groundwork, including improved verification, some bug fixes, minimizing the number of transfer trips during the replication exchange, pruning of deleted references. So when references aren't mentioned in the signed references anymore, they'll get pruned out of the monorepo. And we're actually at the last hurdle. So the last step in the roadmap is respecting the tracking configuration. There was a bit of discussion around the semantics of how these are respected with transitively tracked peers. And it was a bit tricky, but we came to a decision on what we should do here. And once that's in, replication v3 will be in quote-unquote stable state, and we'll remove the previous version of replication. So if there's any objections, we would appreciate them being raised on the mailing list, and more on that below. Foreshadowing. The Git server, we have put in a lot of work into the Git server over the month of March. The bare bones implementation has been presented in the dev mailing list, and there's been groundwork laid to store seeds, and also adding a request pull protocol, which will eventually be deprecated by the mutual sync protocol. This is why that temporary is there. But that will allow us to do git fetch and git push flows that use the seeds stored on the disk to fetch from and push to, and the push will involve the request pull protocol. So this will be super cool. We'll be able to use Git as we normally do and start dog fooding a bit more. And get rid of that nasty rad remote helper that everyone knows and loves. Regarding housekeeping, we've done, like I said, a lot of spring cleaning. So we've updated to Rust C 1.59, still staying on that stable. We have migrated to clap 3 instead of using the combination of clap 2 and struct opt for the CLI arguments. We moved the daemon crate from Radicle link to Radicle Upstream. Thank you to Radicle Upstream for taking on that burden again. The plan there being that once link D is a little bit more stable, it'll replace the daemon altogether, but there was no code being committed to the daemon, so there's no point in keeping it around. We improved our test code organization, so everything's kind of organized into the crates themselves and unified at the top level, and we're also using Cargo Next Test, which has been a delight to use. There's lots of colors and timings, and it even helped out with some of our flakes by retrying, since they're computationally intensive, so that's why they were failing. So when they get to retry, they get to pass, so more assurance that these things actually work. We also now build on NixOS on SourceOut, although it's not quite the distributable build that I was hoping for, but it is an indication of what dependencies we require for other people trying to get things working. Chats, we have officially announced a discuss mailing list. It will be the home for protocol discussions between the Link team, like ourselves, and anyone who's building on top of it. So we welcome all the clients, Upstream, and anyone else to start discussing protocol issues or features or everything in between. And then so the point of it is to have more of an open space for discussing the protocol while avoiding the noise of any development patches. So it kind of sits in between the announce and the dev mailing list. It will also be the home for kind of like pre-RFC discussions and the RFC patches, but we will be planning to cross-post RFCs between dev and discuss. So yeah, please come on, come all to discuss everything Radicle Link. And there's no better timing for it to be introduced since we kicked off a discussion on events and how to disseminate those to Radicle applications without resorting to Apache Kafka. So lots of exciting things being discussed there. So looking forward to hearing more from you and forever linking you to your mono repos, the Link team.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Any questions for Fintan or the Link team? Nope.
For those of you who recently joined, maybe just or within the last few minutes, if you do have a question, please feel free to write it in the chat, or if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and we can give you access to a mic. But yeah, just wanted to add that quick for those who just joined.
Awesome. So let's keep moving to the next core team. We can pass it off to Upstream. I think, is it Kai who's going to be doing the update today? Whoever's speaking, if you are, you're muted. Great. Can you speak, Kai?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Awesome. So I just created a community update and announcements, but I'll go ahead and share my screen. Sorry, I'm gonna have to quit out of Chrome real quick.
I got you, Kai. I already sent it in the chat.
Oh, you did? Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so for Upstream, for the last month, what we've been really working on is kind of aligning on our product and making sure that we all know what to focus on for Upstream. Our core thing that we're driving towards is being able to use Upstream and demonstrate Upstream to various DAOs. And so we're working with the growth team on identifying, I believe, 5 DAOs that we're going to reach out to and have them start using Upstream for their code collaboration on some of their projects. As far as development goes, what that really means is a focus on making sure that our protocol is compatible with the all clients protocol and the push pull seeds. We want to make sure that any projects that are created and cloned, via the CLI can also be usable on the Upstream client. And so we're pretty close. There's a couple of bugs that we're still working through, but I think hopefully by the end of the week, we can start reaching out to the DAOs and getting some of these onboarding sessions set up. And so we've done a couple of feature, I guess, restrictions. So we've narrowed the MVP scope, and you're going to see in the Upstream client that organizations and the Ethereum integration has been taken out for the time being. And moving forward, we're going to start thinking about how we really want to approach these features, what users really want, and how we should integrate it. The reason that we actually took them out was they're just a bit problematic. We're running into a couple of issues that made the system not stable, and we wanted to make sure that when users are using Upstream, it's a stable client and they can actually use it without any major bugs. And really the reason we really want to get this out to DAOs as quick as possible is to start gathering feedback. We believe Upstream is going to be the primary client for any code collaboration. So anything related to like issue management, reviewing, commenting, patches, that's all going to be handled by the Upstream client moving forward. So that's the direction that we're heading. And after the patches work and the initial, I guess the MVP launch, we're going to focus on getting commenting up for patches, and then start working on patch statuses, issue management, and basically capturing more of the value at the top of the funnel and increasing like the Upstream usage across like the user workflow. Yeah, so that's primarily it. Hopefully in the next week, we're going to start seeing actual usage of the Upstream client and real life users starting to use it for code collab. So yeah, check out the forum post. Would love to hear your thoughts and any feedback.
Nice. Any questions for Kai and the Upstream team? We have a question for Radical Drips in the chat. I'll let the Drips team take that, Terex, when their team goes. But any Upstream specific questions? No. Also, Kai, is this your first community call? And it looks like Naz also would like to speak.
This is my first time presenting at the community call. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome. I hope you've received a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nassar,
nice to meet you all.
Did you want to say something? It seems like your hand is raised, but we
Sorry,
can't hear you.
was that to me? I think my headphones just disconnected as you started speaking. What did you say?
You just raised your hand, so I was wondering if you had a question.
No, I think I was clapping.
Okay, I think it was a hand raise, but also claps. Okay, cool. So that's great. So if anybody has questions, of course, you can always drop them in the discourse post. Thank you, Kai and Upstream team. Really excited to see the progress. So let's keep moving to alt clients. Are you speaking, Alexi?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just share. Share. Oh, there's a lot of. Okay. I'm trying a sort of new format, sort of not that new, but kind of new. Still the fig jam, but but kind of like a list with embedded images. All right, so Alclients had a pretty big month, even though I was gone for like half of it. But I guess a lot of stuff was brewing. So since the last community call, we officially launched our CLI, and it's been doing well. It's gotten some good reception. We haven't made a huge buzz about it because we launched kind of at the same time the Ukraine war started. So we're kind of looking forward to actually be a bit more, to kind of spread the news a little bit more as things quiet down with that. In terms of other things that have happened in the CLI since most of you know that this is launched already. So David has been working on integrating Radicle governance into the CLI. So that's going to be really nice because the Sybil interface is definitely a little bit clunky and doesn't always work very well. So I think that's landed actually. I might have just merged it. Yeah, I did merge it today, but it's kind of not released yet. In the same vein, Wallet Connect support is also integrated now. So we'll basically have Ledger and Wallet Connect, which should cover most use cases. And that's going to help a lot with the governance stuff, as I know a lot of people don't have ledgers or don't use them that much. And then in terms of changes since the launch, Rad Push has had an important change, which is it doesn't push all branches by default, which is kind of a privacy leak. When you kind of just did a push and you didn't expect that all of your kind of private branches ended up on the seed node. So now the behavior has changed and it only pushes the current branch unless you specify -- all. And then on Rad Inspect, some additional changes. So now you can kind of inspect the monorepo refs, which is quite handy. I use this all the time to debug or whatever. And you can also inspect the payload of. So this works on the current project, whatever your the current directory is, and then the inspect with no arguments just gives you the current project. That's a nice thing. And then finally, Eric has been working on Rad Propose, which this has not landed yet, but it's essentially our take on patches. It's going to be pretty basic in the beginning and not have like conversations or anything like that. It's kind of a version of the Upstream patches, and we're trying to be feature compatible, and then eventually we hope to essentially have all of the Upstream CLI usage move to the Rad CLI. So that's for the CLI, and then on the web, we launched the Radicle Network website, which is kind of around the CLI and the seeds and all that stuff. We deployed a couple of seed nodes, which are kind of these community seed nodes that anyone can push to. One of them has a bunch more projects than the others because someone mirrored essentially all of the Ethereum GitHub org onto Radicle, so that's kind of cool. Then we started working on verified commits. So this is kind of our own version of verified commits, which actually verifies that, the commit is signed, but it also kind of gives you the peer ID and the user who signed the commit, like the Radicle users. That's kind of cool. And this hasn't landed yet, but it's in a pretty good place. Better Markdown support. So this came from the graph because they use YAML front matter a lot, and so we implemented this. So you can now, you can basically have metadata into your Markdown files, and it'll show up. And inline image support, which was kind of a pain to implement, but it's working now. And you can link to. It might still be a little bit buggy, so let me know. But you can link to images within the repo, essentially in your Markdown. And then finally, another cool thing that is in the works is code activity graph. So same thing as on GitHub. We're still working on this, but it's going to be some nice visual candy on the project listing. So same thing as GitHub. Last 52 weeks of commits essentially will show up, and then finally, Sebastian has been working on testing harness testing framework. So now we finally have tests, and that's pretty cool. And unit tests, component tests, end to end, and everything. So yeah, CI should be a little bit more useful now. So that's basically it for us. I think, yeah, next steps is really polishing all of these these new Radicle CLI commands and the Wallet Connect support. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Any questions for all clients?
Julian.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear you.
So I always kind of wondered if that little graph, that little commit graph on a project is like the most fun thing you can do there. You know, like I feel like a graph is fine, but like just it often is the same, right? It's flat. There's a spike of activity, and it's flat again. That's kind of like most repos, and I kind of feel like I wonder if there's an opportunity to do kind of veer off from what GitHub does and do something maybe a little bit more different.
Yeah, if you have ideas, I'm open to hearing them. I think I like the activity graph because it just kind of quickly gives you a glance of whether something is active or not. Essentially,
That's true. It does do that
because you could show other things like latest commit and stuff, but that doesn't really tell you the same thing. So I like it, but it could also be that plus something else, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd like to show sort of maybe like a face pile of the maintainers or the contributors or some other stuff in addition.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's just always kind of fun, a little bit random.
But yeah, if anyone has ideas for even more fun stuff.
Can we have like a list of ideas at some point in time, right?
Like
that's like a couple of years ago that you're talking about, I think, when we last looked at this. Remember we did look at this, you and I, Alexi, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I can try to look back. I wouldn't even know where to start looking. But yeah, cool. I'll think about it though.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. Then that's it for questions. Right. Thank you, Alexi.
Cool, thanks.
We can keep it moving to drips. Who's presenting from drips team today? It's Andrew. I saw you raise your hand.
Andrew, there he is.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, I raised my actual hand. I couldn't figure out where to raise the hand. Let me just try to share my screen. Cool. Can everyone see?
We cannot see your screen. Or at least I can't.
Okay, let's see.
Now try again. I think Alexi had to stop sharing, or Claude had to sharing his screen.
How about now?
Nope.
Oh, it says screen sharing failed. I might be having a problem with this is a new, sometimes on Macs you have to like allow it. Screen sharing permissions. Okay, well I may just speak the update. But if anyone's,
I'll share the link in the chat. How about that?
That'd be great. Or even if like someone else does have screen, or no, I guess that maybe that won't work. But it's up on radicle.community. So if anyone wants to find it there, it's in the announcements. So cool. So yeah, this is an update from the Drips team. Lots of stuff happening right now. So I think we're going to try a little bit of a different format. Instead of kind of like current and what's next, a lot of the current is also what's next. So it's more just categories. So first on kind of the protocol side, I'd say the two main things are multi-token is getting very close. That's something that I know a lot of folks are excited about. This is the feature that will, today on Drips, it's just DAI that's allowed to be sent or able to be sent, but multi-token will allow any ERC20 token to be sent through Drips, both the protocol and for the communities. So that's pretty exciting, pretty big change. And then we've been doing a lot of work around identity, and this sort of falls into two categories. So to try to, if you want to understand all the details, we have a lot of documents, and come find us in Discord. But there's kind of two big parts to this. The first part is trying to improve the user experience of identity and make it more flexible. And one piece of feedback we got from early users is that they wanted to be able to, this is something we got from like the Solidity team and the Graph team, they wanted to be able to set up communities, but not issue NFT membership tokens or raise funds or anything. Wanted to kind of decouple those two things and make the identity elements much more general in the user experience, where any user can be a team or a community, or they can be an individual, and they can kind of selectively add whatever identity they want to their account, or not, or add none. So we've got that. Everett's done a great job of kind of refactoring the UI to make that work, and we've got a version of that in test that we're playing around with. We'll probably roll that out to mainnet soon. We also have a new identity contract for that allows this kind of basic identity profiles to be just very general and separate. And then much more complicated, and but on the technical side, Igor has been doing a lot of great work figuring out how to kind of refactor our identity at a protocol level to make it very, very general and powerful. And a good example of how this will be useful is for teams like Workstreams that are looking to build on Drips. Could kind of think of these as apps that are building on Drips. This will allow them to have their own identity model for the app and their own kind of set of users, and control that user experience a lot more. So too much to go into on this call, but I think super, super interesting stuff technically, and something we're really excited about. Let's see, Cloudhead looks like he has a comment. Do I unmute him, or? Oh, okay.
No, he said that was a mistake.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So that's kind of what's happening on the protocol. Then there's a Gitcoin ecosystem round that Radicle is participating in, and it's very focused on Drip. So this is super exciting. Just from a high level, the round is encouraging people other projects to play around with splitting to projects that they depend on or that they're inspired by. So roughly, you can see we have sort of a full announcement of what this is and the details. But roughly speaking, what it is any Gitcoin project can apply for this, and they just have to set up a splits profile that will donate. Right now, we're sort of using the Gitcoin recipients, any Gitcoin recipient, as like a whitelist. So it has to be a past project that's received funding from Gitcoin, but if they set up a splits profile that sends 25% of their ecosystem funds coming from Radicle to one of these other projects, then they can receive part of the ecosystem round from Radicle. So it's a bit of an experiment in. I think this kind of replies a bit to the comment that was made earlier, asking about, how can we use Drips to incentivize developers and help support developers. This is a sort of experiment that we're doing in that. So it'll be pretty exciting. That's live right now. So integrations, we've been having a lot of conversations, both the Drips team and the growth team have been having a lot of conversations with other projects. Probably the most exciting thing is that PrimeDAO, which is building a tool called Proposal Inverter, which is a kind of DAO to DAO collaboration tool. You could think of it as kind of like tooling for doing joint ventures between DAOs to build software. And other projects. They've decided to go with Drips as their sort of payment part. So we're talking with them about that, helping. They're sort of finalizing the spec right now. Lots of other conversations with DAO tooling projects like Wonderverse and Station. and Utopia Labs, who are looking into using drips kind of in the same way to support DAOs paying contributors and vesting to contributors. And then this week, Ellie and I met with a team called Catalog, which is doing really cool stuff in the NFT music space. Maybe some of you in Berlin might know them. Super cool product. And also another team called Roll, which is doing kind of social tokens for individuals. About possibly using drips to to enable the payment part of their products or otherwise stream tokens. So lots of cool conversations with other projects happening right now. And then finally audits. We have finally a full security audit lined up with Trail of Bits for the summer. This is kind of one of the premier audit firms. So we just want to make sure we have all of the different features in before we do the full audit. But in the meantime, we're starting in about 6 weeks with an audit from an individual security researcher named Baki. And I think we just want to get multi-token rolled out, and then we're going to start with that. So lots of stuff lined up now for security as well. So I think that's hopefully I'm not too much over time, but I think that's the high level. Lots of stuff happening, super exciting. And maybe I'll take that first question that I think I saw in the, let me see if I can find it.
Do you have it? I can read it to you, or you can just scroll up in the chat.
Okay, I'll just read it real quick. Will Radicle drips be used for incentivizing the creators of open source code? Currently working on a project using Arweave profit sharing coins, but think drips could be another great solution for enabling open source coders becoming incentivized stakeholders, in particular for machine learning models. That's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, that's actually, it's crazy, but that's how drips got started. Was we were interested in sort of philosophically or conceptually, how do folks support open source software in general and open source developers? And it kind of came out of a lot of research that this team all did around OS Coin. If people in the call remember that. And then it turns out to be pretty hard to do this generally. So drips came out of an effort to do this in more of like a Patreon type model, where like instead of a broad solution that sort of perfectly supports the whole ecosystem, let's at least give individuals and teams tools to support. So you can do that with drips today. Actually, as an open source developer, you can set up what we call a community, what we will be calling a membership in the next version, and raise funds from supporters in a very kind of Patreon-like way. So that's like possible today. And if you want more details about that or want to chat about it, we would love to talk with you. Find us in the Discord. Let's talk. And then there's another project at Radicle called Workstreams that is even more focused on this kind of enabling payments to contributors through that's more directly connected to the tooling. So it makes it like really easy for teams to funnel funds to people who are making contributions and so forth. So there's also a Workstreams channel in Discord. I don't think there's anything specifically going on related to machine learning, but again, happy to chat about that if you've got ideas. Let's see. Any other questions for the drips team? All right, maybe I'll hand it back to you.
I have a quick comment. I was at a little Web3 meetup last night in Berlin, and a few folks mentioned drips and how cool they thought it was. Just thought I would share.
Awesome, thanks, Shelby. That's great to hear.
Love it. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Andrew. As you mentioned, Workstreams, I'll actually pass it off to Julian to give a quick update on the Workstreams project.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Julian. I take care of Upstream. So we had a bit of a slow month. Brendan and I sat together and actually did a lot of really nice work, kind of redesigning or like doing an actual first kind of design run of the Upstream thing, which of the Workstreams project, which I'll share in a minute. On the other hand, we've kind of have all the pieces ready, but we're kind of missing a developer to put them all together in the front end. Luckily, on Friday, we have a new person joining, which is Jason, which some of you have met at the community dinner here in Berlin. And I'm gonna poach him to like spend some time on this together with me. Because the goal for work streams has always been to kind of build a prototype first and then kind of think through all the different scenarios. And yeah, that's been kind of tricky with not always having the developer support that we need to do that. Anyway, I'll run you quickly through the UIs that we've been working on. It's more like a sneak peek than an actual presentation because there's quite a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be like, yeah, if I dive into it, there's going to be too many questions and we don't have the time. So let me just share my screen for a minute and can go from there. Oh, that's the wrong screen. All right, this one. You can see this, right? Cool. Here we are. So, Brendan and I have been working. Is this? Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more for the ones with small computers. So we've kind of been working on. That's a bit much. Yeah, kind of how this would work. This is kind of like your explore page. So you would land here. You'd be able to see kind of new work streams that are here. You could see grants, which have like a limited time and a total amount, and then you have a role which has like a yearly amount. We were kind of playing around with different ideas here. You could maybe explore it per DAO. Let's say, Uniswap has a bunch of roles open or grants open, or a team like Radicle Upstream, or you can just kind of look at roles or grants. Anyway, like this idea of having kind of like an overview page where you could kind of like shop around for grants or roles was kind of like what we wanted to illustrate with this. So yeah, and then let's say you are applying to a few work streams, you can go to your dashboards, and here you could see different work streams that you've applied for. Your application has been accepted. Your like stream has ran out of funds. So yeah, there's basically no DAI here for you to claim. Here, there's some DAI that is strictly claimable. So this is an active work stream that you have right now. And if something has ended, for example, the time limit has ended, you can reapply. Maybe you want to extend it. And then some work streams have also kind of ran out. There's all these different scenarios that we can dive into, but we're just kind of illustrating all the different ones. And if you're somebody who's creating work streams, so actually having more people work for you, you kind of have a similar view. But here you can see pending applications. You have one accepted application. So here you can actually start topping up the stream and start, funding this work stream. Here you see there's still some DAI left. You can see at this rate, this is about 2.1 days of DAI left in here. So maybe you want to top this up. And here you see an example of one that might have actually run out. And so this work stream is basically paused because there's no DAI in there right now. Yeah, then like a detail page, let's say you have 5, like for example, here you see this one has 4 pending applications. If you would click view, you'd see a few of these. You could actually view an application or deny them straight from here. And then, yeah, you would see the detail of the work stream. This would be, if you have an active one, you could top it up or pause it. This idea of pausing is also something we're exploring. I'm going really quickly, but just kind of want to show you everything. And this is like an application of somebody. So for example, here I applied to this Uniswap role or grant. There was a rate, but I actually proposed the conf proposal with a little bit of a more expensive rate. And here's my actual kind of like Markdown supported like application, right? And then here somebody like whoever's maintaining this work stream could accept or deny this application. Then we also looked at like how you create one, the kind of different forms. So we kind of like built out the whole app in a kind of a naive way, and then now we're really kind of looking to put all this together and then get some feedback from the engineers what actually works and doesn't work, and then kind of go from there. Yeah. There were some noises, so I don't know if there were any questions. Or are there any questions?
Any questions? No, there's no noises in the chat. People were just having trouble seeing the screen.
I see. Cool.
Yeah,
yeah, I'll
awesome.
share it. This file is already shared in the Workstream's Discord channel. On the top, if you click on information, you see a document. In that document, this file is shared. Feel free to drop any comments in here. Like basically, if you end up on the file, on the left you have Brandon Land. Brandon is the designer that helped me with this. In here, you see this kind of version of this designs, basically. Yeah, so basically for me, it's been a bit of a slow month. I've only spent half of my time working on this, mainly on the design. And like I hope next month we can really kind of pick this up a bit and start actually having that prototype that I've been talking about for, I think, 2 months now or something. So that's the goal. That's it for Workstreams. Please drop into the chat if you know anybody who wants to help me build this. Send them my way. I'm happy to bring more people on board.
Cool.
All right. Later.
Awesome. Thanks, Julian. Cool. So we can pass it off with 2 more. So we can, we have 15 minutes. I think that'll be enough time. So I'll pass it off to growth team.
All right. Hey, how's it going? Can you guys, let me see if I can share my screen. I don't think I can. There, you can see that?
Yep.
Perfect.
You might just want to bump up the screen a little bit so people can read the text if they'd like.
Bump up the screen. As in, you mean the headline?
Like zoom in.
All right. See that? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, cool. So yeah, just doing an update from the growth team. Yeah, it's been a bit of a strange month following kind of the end of last month was East Denver, and I think we were all a little bit destroyed after it. So it's kind of bit of a slow run back up period. I on my other screen, which I can't show right now, I wanted to share the picture from Berlin, which was great to kind of go and meet everyone. Shelby, if you can share the picture of our music album at some point, I think that should be shared. But anyway, so from the growth side, we've been onboarding. We had one more role to kind of fill, and we've now had Lucas join us to kind of basically take on a bit more of the ownership of driving growth amongst DAOs to the Radicle Code Collab side, and he'll be working kind of closely with Kai and helping set up that beta group. And Shannon also will be joining us to kind of support that side, probably more focusing on the developer side rather than the DAO side. But yeah, hopefully having a bit more to say about that. I think next month, kind of this month has been about onboarding them, and pretty happy that like we now have a full team for what we have planned out for this initial period, and so I'm kind of keen to start diving into things. Ecosystem Growth Fund, that's been past governance. Claps hat tip to Abby and Shelby and everyone who's kind of been helping kind of guide us through that process. And so yeah, now that's been basically passed, and hopefully by the end of the week we'll have the funding there. I've already started speaking to some of the kind of committee members who have been helping guide and shape the strategy, and it's actually, yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how much input they would be giving, but I'm quite excited by having like the ecosystem committee, growth fund committee has about I think 5 or 6 different kind of members on it that have come from very different perspectives. Some are like have run large kind of sales teams. Others have run marketing at these top tech startups, and others are like Nadia's running his head of growth at MakerDAO. And running their core unit. So we're having all of these different perspectives. I'm quite excited about that, shaping the strategy for growth at Radicle. And then on the Radicle Code Collab side, we've, as Kai mentioned, we're starting to put together this beta group. We did a big sprint end of last year, speaking to everyone, learning about what the blockers were and what the gaps were. And that kind of was fed back into the team, and they've been doing a lot of great work. And I think we're starting to feel like we're pretty close to like be able to go back out and start trying to re-onboard these DAOs and developers to actually use what we've built. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, so we've just been defining that group and getting ready the messaging ready to kind of go out to them this month. Drips, we've kind of made progress this month in terms of continuing to get our heads around it. Isaiah has been doing a lot of work speaking to the creators and creator platforms, and I think we've been working closely with the Drips team to kind of share that. I've been speaking. Andrew's been pulled into a few calls with DAO tooling providers. I think I'll kind of talk about what we're planning to do next steps there, and then partnerships. So partnerships are pretty exciting. It's kind of something that I need to. I'm hoping once kind of as the team kind of gets up and running, we can dedicate more time to this stuff. But there's a few really interesting partnerships that discussions are ongoing with like other community dev DAOs, product dev DAOs, and then also like larger DAO tooling providers that may be interested in like funding or token swaps. And I think that like it'll be really interesting to start exploring like having these kind of external projects come into the Radicle ecosystem, and also things like the community DAOs and the product dev DAOs. It's quite interesting to kind of be speaking to them and imagining how how they'd end up using like Radicle as like foundations to their stack to allow them to actually operate. At the moment, it feels quite hacky, and it feels quite it feels very like there's something missing there. And so I'm excited about our stack supporting that. And yeah, so that's hopefully we'll have more information on that next month. And then next up, I guess so Isaiah is going to be kind of taking more of a lead on kind of the drip side. He's been speaking, as I mentioned, kind of been speaking to a bunch of the creator platforms and creators, and I think we've learned a lot from those discussions, and I think hopefully this next month is going to be about him focusing on kind of with the rest of the team supporting as well, but kind of support like driving that feedback and lessons learned from trying to onboard these kind of two segments into Drips, into the Drips team. On the Radicle side, as I mentioned, kind of hope it'll be a month of ramping up for like Lucas and Shannon, but we want to start really bringing on those initial partners and DAOs to start using Radicle's code collaboration tooling, and also kind of bringing on more contributors on the DevRel side through like the Ecosystem Growth Fund. And Bremer has kind of also started working with the growth. We had a great call this morning. We've been mapping out like a bit more of the narrative side of what we want to communicate to these partners that we're speaking to. And she's kind of started working with us to kind of start putting together a series of pieces on that. And then the Ecosystem Growth Fund, there's a lot of work to do in terms of we're going to be doing like one-to-one calls with all of the committee members, and then bringing them together as well to help like define the strategy like in a written form that we will share with the community. And then from there, like we've already had an initial proposal, but this will actually be the strategy that's defined by the committee, and then that will be like how we deploy the funds over the 6 months, and then at the end of that period, they'll also be supporting ongoing, but with each initiative that comes in. But then at the end, I think we'll do a review with them, and the aim is to kind of really I guess make sure we achieve the objectives of that fund and share that with the community. And then partnerships, the partnership that I mentioned that we've started discussions with this month. I think we're really going to be diving into that and trying to work out how to how to maybe bring some of those to governance to do something in terms of funding and potentially token swap. And then finally, the contributor side, it's something that I'm fairly interested in, and something I think the ecosystem growth fund will enable a lot of is we want to get a lot better at kind of engaging a wider network of contributors and having them to contributing and earning from kind of engaging in the Radicle ecosystem. And so we're going to be putting a bit more infrastructure in place there to allow them to kind of onboard without so much hand holding. But yeah, that's kind of the overview. Any questions?
No
Nope.
questions? Boredom would like to speak, so maybe Boredom has a couple questions.
This is not really a question, and I don't think I have an answer. But it's something like Abby, you and I talked with I think it was Scott from Gitcoin, like on the topic of token swaps. I kind of see those mostly coming from the Treasury. Would everyone agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's dependent on what the token swap is for. And I think what Nassar is looking at is how can you use token swaps as a means to coordinate a strategic partnership. And I think most token swaps will usually come from the Treasury, but it's kind of also like the tokens to swap have to get out of the Treasury somehow. So it could also be taken from the Treasury via governance proposal, put into the EGF, and then coordinated through there. But I think that it definitely will have to be coordinated via the DAO and what we're talking about. But Nassar and I also kind of chatted about token swaps in general and kind of developing a strategy around that. And I think that this can fit into the distribution of ownership work stream that we started introducing in the forum, which is like, how do we distribute tokens to partners versus ecosystem partners versus like strategic partners and all of that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the motivation for my question is more just like trying to budget RAD for token swaps like 6 months out is quite difficult. Like, so all the sub DAOs that we're making, if we kind of like think about it as we have to go through the governance process to get approval for like some 3 to 6 month plan. Like I never saw myself doing a token swap via the grants, just because trying to budget out RAD that far out in advance, I saw like too much risk with volatility, where I might budget out like X amount of RAD today, but then it could either drop in price or raise in price, which would actually be a good thing. But like it's just like one thought I had.
I think that from based on like the discussion with Abby, I think the mindset here really is, and I think some of Gitcoin's, I think a bunch of Gitcoin's partnerships are more like strategic partnerships to bring the ecosystem together than it is about treasury diversification and that side of things. And so for me, that's kind of the side of partnerships that I'm thinking about. I think in terms of how we I think that what we agreed is that we'd basically start exploring these initial ones, work out what the dynamics are, work out the specific details of whether it makes sense to just do some kind of just a cash-based funding, or whether it makes sense to do token swaps, and work out the the easiest way to do that, get that through governance, and then we will work on kind of how we put systems in place, and maybe it makes sense to put a pool of RAD to do these things, or maybe it makes sense to put that as part of ecosystem growth fund, or maybe it makes sense to do that directly via like our governance system. I think we'll work that out kind of after the fact, after we've done a few. And with I mean, does that cover your question, Boredom? Because Kai's got a question that I.
Yeah, it's not really a question. I just wanted to raise the idea of like trying to budget stuff out like via sub DAOs is quite difficult. I found it to be, at least, so I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's I can see how that could be an issue. But then you've got your whole data science model that like predicts the value of everything in terms of RAD in the future. So I'll just come to you. Yeah, so with regards to Kai, your question, yeah, great question. I think already kind of put like an outline of this in place. I think we'll probably be doing like something like 200 RAD rewards for like an initial beta group, which we'll be working. We'll probably make work via either the ecosystem growth fund, or I can speak to Abby about it. But we'll define that, and then we'll work out how we implement that. But I think we should have a small pool of rewards for people who are joining this beta group.
All right, cool. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'd love to work with you on that and make sure that whoever we're reaching out to also are aware of it.
Yep, sure. And yeah, Lucas will be kind of getting involved in that as well as we define that. But yeah, that covers it. Anything else? Nope.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Nassar. So we're at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna keep going and do my update just so we have it recorded. But if anybody has to run, feel free to drop. Thank you so much for joining. I think we'll do the community update, and then I'll also give, I also have another meeting, so I'll have to hop after I do my update. But if there's some community members who want to join and chat or drop some questions in the chat, let us know and we can keep going. And I don't know, maybe someone else can kind of take over moderating, but I'll also have to run after I do this update. Cool, so I'm just gonna launch right into it and just try to get it done quickly. This is my first community governance written update. Can everybody see my screen? I'm looking, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, great, fab. So I finally wanted to kind of get in the habit of also recording our updates. So this one is a big one. It kind of touches on what I chatted about in previous community calls. But basically the announcement that I wanted to make is that this community core team has kind of been merged with our governance core team. So as everybody knows, we created this governance working group, which is this community-led initiative that was formed to activate Radicle governance. Since then, governance has been activated and started playing a larger role within the Radicle community. So we decided to merge the community team and the governance working group, which is now really led by Shelby and I, and start supporting and restructuring the community team into new core teams, such as marketing, which Tom is leading, and obviously the growth core team, which Nassar is leading. So there's still a lot more work to be done with supporting the formation of growth and marketing and where all the community work sits. But community will be known as community and governance moving forward. And that's because we have some really awesome governance work laid out for this year. So basically the main contributors are me, Shelby, and Boredom, who's running grants, which is kind of like a separate core team within the community and governance core team, I guess. This post, I won't go through these objectives because I'd rather talk about what we did this month. But this post actually lays out some of our objectives for 2022, so people can kind of get aligned with where we're working, what we're focusing on, and this will kind of be actively maintained. You'll already see that some of this work has been done, but this is kind of what we use to structure the conversation for community and governance at the beginning of the year. So if we get into the monthly update, a lot of stuff happened this month that I wanted to make sure we highlighted. So the big first thing that I wanted ideally everybody on the call to hear is about this post that I published yesterday to Radicle community, which is officially announcing and initializing our transition to the Radicle DAO. So I'm going to switch tabs here to this post. So I posted a hefty post on Radicle community that I'd really encourage everybody to read, which talks about what is the next phase of the Radicle DAO. So as outlined in this blog post called Path to Increasing Decentralization Within Radicle, transitioning core development, Radicle development to the DAO is a core part of the Radicle vision, and it always has been. And so the Radicle Foundation, which funds and manages all of the development of our core teams, was created to support the development of different FOSS infrastructure, such as Radicle, by managing and supporting the development of the infrastructure needed to build like decentralized protocol ecosystems. So basically the foundation currently funds and manages most Radicle core development, but the goal has always been to ultimately fund all project development via the treasury of the Radicle DAO, which is what we've been activating governance around. So since we're 1 year past decentralizing the network with RAD, we believe that it's the foundation and the governance team together believe that it's officially time to like initialize this transition and start setting the infrastructure in place to, you know, actually make this happen. And so this post goes through looking back on what we've done with governance, a little bit on the issues that we have with participation that I've also been keeping people up to date about, but also what we've been doing with governance. Over the last 6 months, you know, we created this working group. We created a strategy for deploying the Radicle Treasury. We launched the Radicle Grants Program. We deployed capital into the Ecosystem Growth Fund. We even upgraded our contracts. And so we're activating. Shelby actually has this awesome 2021 Radicle Governance Wrap post that I'd recommend everybody read. But our governance infrastructure is there. And so now what we've been doing is looking forward to where do we want governance to go next. This was built, created in collaboration with the Radicle Foundation Council, and kind of talks through some of our goals with Radicle governance, which is that we want to coordinate our project development via the Radicle DAO. We want to decentralize influence and decision-making power away from the founding team to active contributors and users. And we want to reduce the reliance on the Radicle Foundation as an entity and transfer responsibility to the Radicle DAO. Again, I would don't want to dive in too much here. It could be a whole nother working session. We'll probably talk about it in Amsterdam, but I wanted everybody to take a look because I've proposed 4 work streams that outline specific like chunks of work that are going to need to happen to achieve these governance goals. These are not going to happen all at once. They're going to happen in tandem on different timelines, but the goal here is to create the space to say this is what needs to be done to meet Radicle's governance goals and contextualize some of the work that the foundation is going to be doing, the community and governance core team is going to be contributing to, but also where we'd like to loop in contributors and get them building as well. So, so yeah, it's basically, you know, I'm not going to go through all 4 of the work streams, but I really recommend everybody go through and read it. It's highly relevant for Radicle core contributors, people on this call, because it's basically proposing and trying to figure out how we can make a better governance system for all of us, and how our governance can be designed around our needs as contributors to the Radicle ecosystem. And so if you could take one piece of homework for me, it's to read through this post, add your thoughts, drop your comments, ask me questions, ask Shelby questions, so we can start really initializing that transition. So that was a big deal, and a lot of work went into that as well from many different parties. So that was a big thing. Other line items, we began coordinating a contributor offsite and some event sponsorships at DevConnect, which is in Amsterdam, which is the 3rd week of April, so after Easter. We also coordinated an awesome Berlin contributor gathering. It was so much fun seeing everybody, and really great to get together for dinner. Amsterdam's going to be a little bit more involved. We're going to be doing an offsite and having some Radicle community events. So this is a call out to all of our Radicle community members, is that if you're planning on being in Amsterdam, let us know. We're planning some fun activities and would love to involve as many people from the Radicle community as possible. In terms of governance, we moved 2 proposals through on-chain governance, which have been mentioned. The first was the Radicle Ecosystem Growth Fund, which is $500K deployed into the growth team that they can use to fund different growth initiatives. Super exciting, and you can consider it a little experiment in this whole transition to the DAO as well, is what happens when you give core teams the ability to control their own pools of DAO-funded capital. So that's very exciting. And Nassar has like some really great groundwork around the EGF. And then the second was actually us setting the name registration fee to 0 to reduce onboarding and registration of ENS names, which was another like growth adoption proposal that made its way through governance. Next, we held one-on-one meetings with all Radicle contributors to discuss governance, participation, and pain points. Again, this is all just to be learning and understanding how we can be improving our governance system to better fit our contributors, to better support participation as we, experience the pain points that go through token voting in our on-chain governance system. So that was really great. Thank you, everybody, for giving us that time, being very responsive. We really appreciate it. Shelby launched the Radicle Governance newsletter for sharing governance updates with the community. You can actually find the subscribe link in the Radicle.community. This is awesome. Shelby is going to be sharing updates bi-weekly. I think that's what you decided with the community. And this is such a great way to keep up to date with different proposal discussions, voting reminders, all of that. And so really great resource. I'm super excited to have her managing there. And Shelby and I have also been doing a ton of one-on-one meetings with RAD holders, primarily investors, and have been conducting redelegation within the ecosystem. So as you know, last month, Shelby did great work setting up some new delegation platform, a new process for onboarding and announcing yourself as delegates. And we've started entering a lot of conversations with our investors to start activating their governing power by distributing it to community members, getting their tokens activated in their custody providers and all of that. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes as well with regards to governance. And then finally, one cool community initiative we did this year was we funded an ecosystem round in Gitcoin's latest grant round. So Andrew actually mentioned this, but basically we distributed $25,000 to Gitcoin grantees who use drips to split funds with other grantees. It was a really cool experiment. It was really awesome to try to create like a fun incentive for using drips within Gitcoin grants. And it got a lot of different projects participating. So we'll be posting as that grants round comes to an end and hopefully expanding and doing a larger experiment with Gitcoin in the future. So those are all my updates. I'll end there. I'll let Shelby jump in if she has anything, and then Boredom, if you want to give a quick update on grants, feel free.
Yeah, no, not much to add. Thank you for the very lovely summary and the awesome transition to the DAO article. Again, highly recommend for everyone to read that. You might have seen also, Abby, I can't remember if you mentioned this or not, you might have seen a few changes on Discord around the governance channels. The governance updates will be your guiding beacon for governance announcements and decisions, along with the Twitter. Those are pretty much the Radicle Governance Twitter. Those are pretty much the same things posted in two different places, depending on where people like to get their updates. That's more like live real-time updates. I wanted to point that out specifically because of the newsletter. It is in fact bi-weekly. So we'll still post, current active proposals or things to maybe keep an eye out for, but it will not be like an update email for every time there's a new proposal. I just wanted to make that clear so people don't think it's that and start relying on that for updates. But the broader the newsletter will be great for also just broader governance core team updates and events and different happenings within that ecosystem. And yeah, I think that's all I'll say for now, and I'll pass it off to Boredom.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so in the last month we funded two pretty interesting grants. One was to basically start doing user research around IDE integration for the CLI. So that should give us some useful information as to how we might integrate with tools that people are using in their development workflows. Another one was around standardization for DAO metadata. That one's a bit more involved, so I won't go into the weeds on that, but that just passed, so we funded that. The other thing that I noticed I forget whose whose update it was in the forum, but I saw that we're getting closer to supporting other ERC20 tokens. I'm kind of chomping at the bit to dog food that for yeah. So once that's ready, feel free to shoot me a message. I'll be really interested in that. The plan for that is we'd like to basically set up drips to a few protocols that are core to the governance of grants. So yeah, we'd basically love to just send them like some of our USDC budget that's sitting there. That's it for now. Oh, one more thing was I had a chat with Kai from the Upstream. And one interesting thing that we talked about was using grants as a recruiting tool. And I'm going to flesh that out a bit more, just like visually, so I can share it with others. But the kind of gist of it was that if a team is ever recruiting or trying to find new contributors, that you could kind of like think of grants as a piggy bank to work on sort of like low priority work that maybe you want to use as a means to sort of like interview someone. So if you were to say like, hey, we'd like to maybe see if you want to work with someone, you could figure out like, here, go into your backlog and say, here's something that we could ask someone to do that's not super high priority. And if they do it well, then maybe we bring them on like full-time or like part-time or something like that. So that was like an interesting conversation I recently had, just in terms of how you might tap into grants for recruiting. That's it for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, folks, our 20 minutes in, we did it. Thank you everyone for sharing your updates. It's always one of my favorite times of the month here. I will start compiling notes, and the recording will be uploaded with the notes latest tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, I'll share it in the community channel when. But yeah, for everyone who joined from the community, and we will see you next month.